Hi, thank you for joining us. Anti-Hunger Coalition Timmins is really excited for you to learn how to make your very own homemade pasta. In this video, you'll learn the formula and how to mix and knead dough, but before we get there, I'd like to talk to you a bit about ACT and what we do. We're a local charity that works to increase access to healthy, fresh, and affordable foods in Timmins area. We do this in a variety of ways by partnering with local organizations to provide programs such as the Good Food Box, community gardens, and collective cooking. The video you're about to watch is a perfect example of what ACT aims to do. Increasing those kitchen skills, trying something new, and having fun while doing it. Enjoy learning how to make no-fear pasta with Mark Toffanello.
Essentially, I normally don't measure, but I have been in the past a while because I wanted to find out, the ratio between egg and flour. The difference between a large egg and an extra large egg is there is a difference. But I've always found that 1 egg, 1 cup of flour, you've always got a little bit of flour left over. But don't worry about putting too much flour. Normally I would just dump it on the table right from the bag. You don't need to measure, but I'm going to do that now. I've got about just over 4 cups of flour here. And this is exactly the way my grandmother did it. You make a little well. This is the 3rd time I've made pasta this morning. Good thing I love what I do. Now, these are locally grown eggs. The color is amazing. So you can do this in a bowl at home. If you're not, if you're not comfortable with doing it this way. Now, I'm not following my own instructions, I don't care. No fear, remember that? Just follow your heart. So, that's done. Now, at this point, I will sometimes salt my pasta. I'll just sprinkle whatever. You don't have to put lots, but my grandmother did it. Sometimes I don't do it, it's how I feel. But you should always salt your water. It's always better to salt your water. It just adds to the flavor of your sauce. It does nothing to the texture of your pasta. It's always been very comforting, eh? I mean, the cooking is comfort for me. Check to make sure you haven't got any eggshells in there. Not the end of the world, but that's basically it. Sometimes I put salt in here, but it's not absolutely necessary. So basically you're just using your flour as your bowl. Beat your eggs up and start drawing your flour in. And incorporate it. This whole process from the beginning till the end, and the end being that it's finished, I'm finished kneading it, usually takes about, 10 minutes maybe. Depends on how many eggs you're using, how much flour. It'll take longer, of course, if you've never done it before. You can see how the eggs and the flour are becoming a little thicker. That's the whole thing. I mean, if you wanted to use a KitchenAid or some kind of a mixer to do this, it'll make it a lot easier. But this is the way we do it at home. I still do it at home like this. I find that even mixing the dough in a KitchenAid, it's quicker, but I find that even after the dough is done, I still feel a need to manually knead the dough just for a minute or two so I know how it feels. And so it's really coming together now. It's getting quite thick. Now, in the end, if you end up doing it this way, and we do it like this all the time. This is the way we want pasta for supper. We'll make the pasta exactly like this. I had mentioned earlier that there's a semolina flour as well. That's what we used to sell at the shop. Excellent flour for making pasta. It's got some properties that lend itself to the cook that, if you know what you're doing, it takes a little longer to cook, but that's not a bad thing. Oh, look at the color, eh? Man, that's beautiful. If you want to make spinach pasta, this is where you put it, okay? And you don't even have to chop it or anything. You get some of that baby spinach, just mix it in. If you want to chop it, go ahead, chop it. You want to use frozen spinach, squeeze it out as much as you can, and chop that and put it in. You have spinach pasta. But this is where you would add that. And shortly, I'm going to let go of my fork and I'll start using my hands. First your fingers, then your hands. Yeah, close enough. So at this point, I drag flour underneath this wet ball of dough, just so it's not sticking underneath. And at this point you can add a bunch of flour. Use your fingers to poke a bunch of holes in it. So you start with your fingers. You don't have to worry about putting too much flour in because you can't. When you're finished, you know you're done because the dough won't accept any more flour. Or you're working harder than you have to. Okay, so the finger part is almost done. I still like poking holes in it. Gives it more surface area and it helps to incorporate the flour. So at this point, we're getting into the kneading. This is the hard part of this. This is the part that people don't really look forward to. To me, it's like, the kitchen is a playground. So what you're doing here is you're kneading your dough. Now you knead it because you want, I'm no scientist, but it's all about the gluten. It's all about the eggs and the flour come together. The molecules all hooking up, and I read this a long time ago, but the molecules tend to hook up in a string. That's what makes it so elastic. Anyway, you're kneading this probably for about, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. This table is a little bit low. Now it's quite sticky here, so I'll just put a little bit of flour on my hands. And at this point, you're just working your dough, and my grandmother told me to knead it until it's as smooth as a baby's bum. And you know what? I can't tell you when to stop kneading it. All I can do is tell you that I knead it until I feel like it's done. It feels firm but delicate. Oh, I love that color. This is going to be very different from all the other dough pasta we cut this morning. And you'll find that the dough will keep absorbing the flour, and you'll know when to put a little bit more in, because the dough will get so sticky it'll be sticking to your hands. So the more eggs you use, the more difficult it is. It's just there's just a lot more mass to be moving around, and what you're doing here is you're You're trying to get the dough to be stronger. You're trying to get all those molecules lined up so that you've got a strong dough, but a delicate one. And the white flour pasta is far more delicate than the semolina pasta. Semolina pasta is great, but it's difficult to knead. It's a very hard wheat, hard flour, and it makes this part of the process much more difficult. This stuff that's stuck to the table, by the way, don't clean it off right away. That's going to be important later on. I'll show you. So you can see where the table's probably bending a little bit. It's not an easy thing to do. This is 6 eggs. 2 eggs, it should be fairly straightforward. Mary made her first dough yesterday by herself. Very proud. And that's the thing you get out of this. It's not just a meal later on, but it's something that came from your heart and from your hands. Cooking is love, and cooking is respect. So you do this because you love and respect the people you're doing it for, whether it's your friends, your family. I wouldn't do this for anybody I don't like. Feels right. I know that doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's a good workout. But at this point, the dough is essentially ready. I still like to knead it a bit longer, just to strengthen the dough. It's slightly sticky, but it's not sticking to my hands. And this, you're just working all of that flour and the eggs together, strengthening the bonds. And if you don't do this well enough, your pasta is going to be light and fly away. It'll cook faster. But yeah, this is pretty much done. And you'll see when you start to, if you've kneaded it well enough, you'll start to see little air bubbles forming on your sheets of pasta.